Hello, welcome to the Wandering Stitches podcast. My name is Jess, and this is my very first episode. You can find me on Instagram, Wandering Stitches, and also on Ravelry, MyKnittedBrow. So I am going to be mostly talking about knitting. I am learning how to weave. I am learning how to crochet and rug hooking, embroidery, sewing, and basket making. So you will see some of those projects creep into my creative journey. I welcome you on that journey, and I hope to inspire you, and I hope to connect with you on your creative process. I have been knitting since 2012 nonstop. I did learn when I was in 5th grade, and I did a little bit of knitting when I was in college, but my passion really took hold back in 2012. So I'm going to talk about some finished objects that I have to share with you. I will show you some of the projects that I've done this summer. And my first project I'm going to talk about, I cast it on back in June, and it was for the Worldwide Knit in Public Day. I had gone up to my local yarn shop up in Bridgeton, the Good Karma Yarn and Soap. I saw that Teresa, who works there, was knitting this Pousse Cafe sweater vest in the yarn that Good Karma Yarn has. And it is the Goosed Spruce yarn, and it is alpaca, and it was dyed by Amy. And I also used the Hobbi Kid Silk yarn, and this is the finished object. So, did you know that Pousse Cafe is actually a drink? I did not know that. Pousse Cafe, go back, is by Thea Coleman, BabyCocktails. So it's a cocktail, Pousse Cafe. It is a drink made with liquors of differing specific gravity, so it will give you the layered look. I learned something thanks to my knitting project. So what I did was I held the yarn on its own for the ribbing and the armholes and the neck. And then the gray was just something that was stashed from a previous project. And if you compare the two details, you'll see that they differ. So that's where I kind of messed up a little bit. But by the time I noticed it, I was like, oh no, I don't want to go back. So yeah, I knit this in the 42, which I think is a medium. It's a bit oversized for me, but I wanted to use it as like a layering piece for the falls and main winters. I just love this. It is so soft and cuddly and warm. And I'm going to talk about price. Hopefully that's okay here to talk about price. The skein for this yarn was $20, and I used about 2.5. And then the Hobbi Kid Silk was about $8 a skein, and I think I only used 2 of these. So the materials for it was about $87. I would say it was worth it. I do love this piece, and I can't wait to wear it once the weather cools down. So that is one project. I did this probably in about a month, and I'm a slow knitter. I didn't really quite introduce myself. I am a nurse anesthetist. That is my career. I live here in Maine with my family. I have a husband and 2 kids, a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And I have a dog, Josie, and 2 cats, Hazzy, Azriel, and Cookie. So I am busy. So I probably typically knit, I would say, for half an hour in the morning and then maybe 2 hours in the evening. So it takes me a little bit to get projects done. But I will show you a project that I was able to get done in an evening. Well, actually, it was like a Sunday afternoon. But this took me about 4 hours. And it is called the Hothead. And this was a stash buster, so I don't have the prices, nor do I have the yarn tags for them, but it's basically a worsted weight yarn held double for a marled look, and you can see that it's like a green and a brown held double. And this is a pattern that I got out of this book, the Stitch and Bitch book by Debbie Stoller. And what I'm going to do in this podcast is just go back into my books and use my stash and hopefully use up my stash with some projects from books. I love collecting knitting books, probably even more so than I love collecting yarn. So I do use Ravelry. I get a lot of inspiration from the knitting podcasts and Instagram and Ravelry. But as you can see, I have all of these books that I have been collecting over the past 10 years. And that Stitch and Bitch was my first book ever. When I was being reintroduced to how to knit, and the handbook is something that I go back to, and the pictures and the illustrations and the wording that she uses is something that is easily like sunk into my brain. So I can remember how the stitches are supposed to lay. I can remember the difference between knit and purl. And this project was knit flat, so a beginner could easily learn how to do the knit and purl stitch, the basic stitches, and decrease and seam. It took me 4 hours. Did I say that already? And this is actually the pattern. And so you can pick whatever colors you want and make it your own. I love this hat pattern because it's super easy, it's super quick, and it makes a great gift. I've made a bunch for my husband, and he says that, well, he's my husband, so I guess he's gonna say they're my favorite hats. But yeah, you know, they're really easy, basic beanie. So yeah, I recommend this book, like I said, for beginners, and it will take you through some projects. It's got some sweater projects, some sock, accessory, hats, blankets. It even has a sewing project for something to hold your circular needles. So I do love this book. So those are my 2 finished projects that I have done just recently. I'm going to move on to my works in progress. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to introduce you to my most recent book purchase, which I'm super excited about. I haven't picked a project yet, but this was my most recent purchase, and I saw this in Sherman's bookstore here in Maine. We have a bunch of them in different locations throughout Maine, but I saw this in the Wyndham Sherman's book location, and this is, I just saw the cover, and I just instantly wanted to buy it, regardless of what was inside. But even when I looked inside, I was amazed. It's basically got all of his sweaters. It's got patterns for the Daniel Daniel Tiger puppet. It's got one for the trolley and the owl and the king and queen. It's got some blankets and little mini cardigans that you can knit. So you'll see this again in future episodes. My next project that I'm going to do is going to be a stash buster. I have this. This is from a previous project. This is the Malabrigo Archangel. It's upside down. It's the Rasta, and you get 90 yards from this. And excuse me, I have a little ball left over, and the project that I'm going to do out of this Highland Knits is based and inspired from the Outlander series. I love the series and I love the books. I've finished all of the books, and I haven't gotten through all of the series yet, but I will do that maybe while I cast this on. I'll get through season, I'm not even sure what seasons are on yet, but I think 6 and 7. But this is the Castle Leo ribbed cowl, and it uses just the amount of yardage that I have in that Rasta, so I figured that would be a great stash buster. So that'll be my next book project. So onto my works in progress. This is the Deep Winter Coat by Wool & Pine. I saw this on Instagram and I instantly had to buy it. I love the cable detail on this. And so this is the back and this is the front. So these are the front panels, and you just basically knit back and forth, and then you knit the sleeves, and that will have a cable detail on it. It is charted, so I would say it's probably more of an intermediate, and you do have to go back and forth between 3 charts for the back and the 2 panels, and then there's even a chart for the sleeve. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. The yarn, the black yarn, I used the recommended, and they have 3 recommendations for the yarn, and I went with Lion Brand Wool Ease in black. I'm knitting this for a dear friend of mine, and she had requested a black sweater. So it's easy. As you can see, the details show up pretty nicely, and the wool is, the yarn is held double, so the stitches stand out pretty nicely. So it's actually pretty easy to knit with. Black yarn tends to get a bad rap as far as not easy to knit with, but this yarn is pretty easy. This yarn I got right from Lion Brand, and I bought 16 skeins, and I thought it was a pretty frugal project because the skeins are about $5 each. So yeah, so it's not a bad price for a beautiful, thick, warm, squishy product. And it's actually my second time around knitting it. I do hope to add some footage of me and Josie, my dog. We went for a walk this morning. It was actually pretty cool. So I made this deep winter coat in some yarn that my husband had brought back from Spain. He went on a trip to Spain a couple of years ago, and I was gifted some yarn that he brought back, which I thought was pretty amazing. He doesn't speak Spanish fluently, and Madrid is not the most English-speaking city in Spain, so he managed to get himself to a yarn shop and purchase yarn. So he bought 3 different colors, so I took the project and made it into like a color block. project. I had to do a little bit of intarsia, and there was some guesswork as to how to do the color blocks and whatnot, but I think the end product is I love it. And it's super easy to throw on, and it's super squishy and warm, and it was perfect for my morning walk. So I do hope to be able to edit that into this video. Yeah, so that's one work in project. I keep saying project. Progress. Okay. So my next project is The Lost Tank by Friday Knits, and this was requested by my niece. So I am typically not a gift knitter unless I get a specific request, and then I am happy to knit for people. But otherwise, I get really nervous about just knitting things for people, and then worrying about whether or not they even want it. So yeah, that's so typically I'm a selfish knitter, I guess, unless somebody asks for it. But she wanted a tank, and I said absolutely. So I went on Ravelry and I found this tank, and she loved the pattern. And then I went to yarn.com and I found the yarn that it calls for, which is fingering weight. And I picked this yarn, which is Kobasi, I'm probably saying that wrong, by Haiku, and it's cotton, bamboo, and silk with some nylon. So it's got a beautiful drape, and it's got a nice stretch to it. And this is the color Violet. And let me see if I can show you the drape. And this is my project that I bring with me when I go hiking, because it's easy to just compress it into my little fanny pack. It doesn't weigh me down, and it's just 2x1 ribbing, so it's super easy. I don't even need to bring my papers or the pattern or anything. I can just kind of knit away, do a couple rounds while I'm enjoying the scenery. And the construction is super easy. You just cast on the back, you knit down, you pick up stitches for the shoulder, and then you knit the front, and then you will knit in the round. And then you pick up for the armholes and the neck, and the pattern comes in all customizable ways. So it's nice that since you're knitting top down, you can make it as long as you want or as cropped as you want, and you can adjust the neckline and whatnot. So that pattern is from an Australian designer, so that was about $12, and then the skeins were $8 a piece, and I'm probably only going to use 1.5 skeins, so that's not too bad of a project. I am probably going to take another month to do that, because that's just sort of like I'm primarily focusing on the cardigan and just doing the tank when I'm on my hike or when I'm just doing social knitting, because it is sort of a mindless knit. Or when I'm watching TV, I'll show you what I'm working on now. And I did, or when I'm watching my podcasts, I was inspired to cast this on. This is the Friday Shrug by Jackie of Katie Jack's Knits. Amy Palco is, along with Jackie, is hosting the Scottish Shrug Club Cal. The festival is in Scotland, and it is in September, and Amy is hosting a Cal. And although I won't be able to go to the actual festival, I am using Scottish yarn that I picked up when I visited Scotland back in April. So I went to Isle of Skye, where I picked this up. We were staying in Carbost, and there just happened to be a little croft on the croft Isle of Skye yarn. So I brought back 3 skeins of this yarn, and it's been sort of sitting in my stash, just waiting for the perfect project. And then I just recently saw Amy's video introducing the cowl, and I thought, oh, I could probably do that. Sure, why not? That seems like the perfect amount of yardage. And I have about 600 yards, and the Friday Shrug is a DK weight, held double, that is about 600 yards. So I thought, perfect. And I have left over from my Pousse Cafe vest, I have the Kid Silk. So I'm going to hold this double with the yarn that I got, the Scottish yarn. And so the bottom is the 2 yarns held together. And then I wanted to see the Scottish yarn just showcased on its own. So I'm going to do stripes, or maybe just 1 stripe, and then do the rest of the shrug in with the mohair and the wool held together. I'm super excited. I've never done a cowl before, because I'm a slow knitter and I always feel the pressure. Like, I would really be reluctant to sign up to be a test knitter and to do a cowl, because I am such a slow knitter, because I probably only knit, maybe, this might be a lot, but 2.5 hours. So I'll knit a half an hour in the morning and then 2 hours in the evening. And so it takes me a while to get through the projects. But yeah. So I really appreciate you being here, and I really am thankful. Hopefully you've enjoyed this content. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And I am going to be going on a trip up north. I am doing the 2023 Maine yarn cruise, and I'm about to go on a weekend excursion with another knitting friend, Corinne, and I bought this about a month ago, and I've already hit, so there's 24 stops, and I've highlighted the places where I've gone. So you can see there are a bunch more. And we're gonna go up the coast to Bangor and all the way up to Calais. And I think we're going to be hitting about 5 knitting shops, yarn shops, excuse me. So yeah, so that's what's gonna happen this weekend. I'll get some footage of that. Oh, and I will show you some of the yarns that I did a workshop, a day workshop with Marty from A Wrinkle in Time. She just recently had a natural dye class at the Shaker Village, and I bought some yarn from Marty to dye. We used this from her own wool sheep. Her own sheep produced the wool, and we used log wood to create this yarn. And just look at it, it's a beautiful color. It's supposed to be purple. I look at this, and this is like a bluish purple. This is a blend of cashmere and wool. And I brought this to dye, and it was in a ball, and I plunked this in the madder root dye bath. And this yarn I bought from Sarah, Fiber Trek, and I believe this came from her Orkney sheep, and it's gray, and I wanted to experiment with gray and the natural dyes. So this was plunked into an indigo dye bath and a Cochineal dye bath. So the gray didn't pick up as well. The wool, the merino and cashmere did pick up the cochineal dye really nicely. And the gray, I bought another skein from Sarah, and this was the indigo, which I think is beautiful. They're all beautiful. And I can't wait to, I'm just waiting for the perfect project for them. So yeah, I am going to be practicing with goldenrod. I have a ton of goldenrod. It's in full bloom right now here in Maine, and that is another great natural dye. And I have started collecting the tools that I need to start dyeing and experimenting on my own. So stay tuned for that. I am probably going to use this first in a project, so stay tuned for that, and I'll share that with you in future episodes. And what else will I be doing? What's another future project? I did pick this up while I was on my yarn cruise at the Good Karma Yarn. I picked up the level 1 crochet because I'm not, I'm a very beginner crocheter. And I figured, well, with the little project, I could learn all the stitches, increases, decreases, and all that stuff. I will end here, and I'll say goodbye again, and thank you very much. I really appreciate you stopping by and sticking with me to the very end. And I hope to connect with you in the comments. Leave any suggestions, any podcasting suggestions, editing suggestions as far as what you would use or recommend for editing, and any content that you would like to see. And of course, any criticisms, I'm open to that as well. I hope you have a great day, and I hope that you do all the things that you love. Thank you.